when a malicious setup forces humble pack maid Alice into Alpha Thomas's private executive suite, she expects immediate ruin until she slips and falls right onto the devastatingly handsome sovereign's bed. Caught in a delicate political trap orchestrated by his treacherous sister, Thomas locks the door to protect his position, forcing Alice to spend a breathless night hidden in his quarters. Prepare for an addictive, slow-burn, paranormal romance where a midnight scandal turns dangerous. The grand marble corridors of the Silveridge Pack estate were usually quiet by 11 p.m, but tonight the heavy scent of fresh paint and wood polish hung thick in the air. Alice, a pack maid who had spent the last 2 years quietly tending to the estate's endless guest swings, carried her small canvas bag of belongings down the unfamiliar south gallery. Half an hour ago, Lady Cynthia, the Alpha's fiercely ambitious younger sister, had stopped her in the linen room. Cynthia had given her a tight, uncharacteristic smile and told her that due to sudden floor renovations in the servants' quarters, Alice would need to occupy the vacant suite at the very end of the executive wing for the night. Exhausted from a 12-hour shift, Alice didn't question the order. She slipped into the luxurious, dimly lit bedroom, marvelling at the plush, velvet drapes and the massive four-poster bed. Wanting nothing more than to drift into a deep sleep, she changed into her one indulgence, a midnight blue silk nightdress. Standing before the ornate vanity mirror, she let her hair down and began to run a brush through the strands, the silk fabric catching the soft amber glow of the bedside lamps. Suddenly, the heavy oak door to the ensuite bathroom clicked open. Alice froze, the brush slipping slightly in her hand. Stepping out into the bedroom, enveloped in a cloud of steam, was Alpha Thomas. He was breathtakingly handsome, with a rugged, sculpted jawline, dark hair damp from the shower, and a powerful, heavy, muscled chest that tapered down to a remarkably lean waist. He wore nothing but a white towel wrapped low around his hips. Thomas stopped dead in his tracks, his striking, piercing silver eyes locking instantly onto Alice. The air in the room instantly grew heavy, charged with a sudden, suffocating intensity. "What are you doing in my quarters?" Thomas's voice vibrated through the room, smooth but demanding an immediate answer. Alpha, Alice stammered, her face instantly burning crimson. Panic flared in her chest. She realized with terrifying clarity that she had been horribly set up. I'm so sorry. I was told. I didn't know." Terrified of the consequences, Alice quickly gathered her hairbrush, her uniform and her bag, clutching them to her chest as she turned to rush out the room. She just needed to escape before anyone saw her. "Wait, stop," Thomas commanded, stepping forward. He didn't want her running out into the hallway in that state without finding out exactly how a maid had ended up inside his private sanctuary. As Alice lunged for the door handle, her foot caught on the edge of the thick Persian rug. She gasped, losing her balance. Thomas lunged forward with supernatural speed to catch her, but his grip caught the slick fabric of her silk dress, and instead of stabilizing her, they both tumbled backward. Alice landed hard against the mattress of the massive four-poster bed, with Thomas looming directly over her, his hands braced on either side of her shoulders. The heat radiating from his bare skin was intoxicating. For a breathless, agonizing second, neither of them moved. Thomas's silver eyes scanned her face, a strange, feral spark igniting deep within his gaze. Sensing her sheer terror, Thomas smoothly slid off the bed, walked over to the door, and turned the heavy brass key, locking it with a decisive click. "Please," Alice whispered, pulling the velvet duvet up her chin, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Do not hurt me." "I'm not going to hurt you," Thomas said gently, though his expression remained deadly serious. He leaned against the doorframe, crossing his massive arms over his bare chest. "But look at the clock, Alice. It is past midnight. If you leave my bedroom right now in a silk nightdress, and a guard or a servant catches sight of you, the gossip will spread through the packhouse by sunrise. My political position is already fragile. A scandal like this will weaken my authority before the elders. You have to spend the night here." Alice swallowed hard, realizing the trap she was caught in. "Sit," Thomas said, gesturing to the armchair by the hearth, while he pulled on a robe of dark silk. "Tell me how you ended up here." Alice took a shaky breath and explained exactly what had happened, recounting how Lady Cynthia had personally intercepted her and told her to sleep in this specific room due to renovations in the servants' quarters. As Thomas listened, his jaw tightened and his silver eyes narrowed into slits of pure, calculated fury. He knew the truth. There were no renovations. Cynthia had been plotting to overthrow him for months, desperately wanting his position as alpha. If Cynthia had marched in tomorrow morning with the high elders and found a human maid in his bed, it would have been the perfect ammunition to challenge his moral standing and fitness to rule. He had put two and two together, and the pictures were treacherous. With the threat understood, the tension slowly began to melt away. Neither of them could sleep, so they spent the remaining hours of the night talking, sitting across from each other in the quiet room. Alice spoke of her life before the estate, and Thomas spoke of the heavy, lonely burden of leading a pack. As the hours ticked by, Thomas noticed the way his wolf stirred frantically in his chest, drawn to her gentle resilience and her sweet scent. He realized, with a profound shock to his soul, that this humble maid was his fated mate. But looking at her guarded, weary eyes, he kept the truth to himself. She'd been through enough tonight. He would not overwhelm her with a mate bond she wasn't ready for. As the first pale lines of dawn began to bleed through the curtains, Thomas stood up. "The guards shift at 5 a.m., he whispered. "We need to move." With absolute, silent precision, Thomas sneaked Alice out of his executive suite and escorted her down a hidden service stairwell, placing her safely into an empty neutral guest room down the hall. Exactly 2 hours later, a sharp, demanding knock echoed against Thomas's bedroom door. Now Thomas, fully dressed in his alpha uniform, he opened the door to find his sister Cynthia standing on the threshold. She wasn't alone. She had brought a small entourage of influential pack nobles and elders under the pretense of an early morning strategy meeting. Cynthia's face practically fell when she saw Thomas standing there completely alone, immaculate and unbothered. "Thomas," Cynthia stammered, her eyes darting frantically past his broad shoulders into the empty bedroom. "Good morning. We needed to speak with you urgently." "Of course, sister," Thomas said, with a cold, knowing smirk playing on his lips. Cynthia's hand fidgeted, desperately to find proof of the trap she had set. She pressed her lips together. "Actually, I feel a bit unwell. May I use your restroom?" "Be my guest," Thomas replied, stepping aside. Cynthia rushed into the ensuite bathroom, frantically scanning the corners, behind the shower glass, and inside the closets. But there was absolutely no one there. She walked back out into the bedroom, her face pale, with a mixture of shock and profound disappointment. Her trap had completely failed. Weeks passed by after the incident. Thomas searched the main estate tirelessly for Alice, wanting to bring her under his direct protection. But Cynthia, realizing her plot had been intercepted, had secretly used her administrative authority to send Alice away, transferring her to tend to one of the pack's isolated summer houses 3 hours away in the valley. Thomas, refusing to let her go, finally tracked down her location. He arranged an official inspection of the property, stopping for the night at the quiet, sun-drenched estate. Late that evening, when the moon was high and the air smelled of blooming jasmine, Thomas found Alice walking down the stone paths of the twilight garden. "Alice," he called out softly. She turned, her breath catching in her throat, as she saw the Alpha King standing beneath the silver moonlight. "Alpha Thomas, what are you doing here?" Thomas didn't hesitate. He crossed the grass in long, determined strokes, stopping right in front of her. He reached out, his large hand gently cupping her face. "I have spent weeks looking for you," he whispered, his eyes burning silver, deep, consuming with warmth. "Cynthia sent you away to hide her tracks, but I couldn't let you go. That night, in my room, I realized what you are to me. I love you, Alice. I want you as my side, not as a maid, but as my mate." Alice looked at him, the fear and the walls she had built up over the weeks completely crumbling against the sincerity in his voice. A beautiful, radiant smile broke across her face. "I thought I was losing my mind," she admitted softly, a tear of relief slipping down her cheek. "Ever since that night, all I could think of was you." Thomas smiled, leaning down to capture her lips in a deep, slow, passionate kiss that sealed their bond forever under the watch of the stars. If you enjoyed tonight's story, please give a like and consider subscribing. It really helps me out to make more human-narrated stories like this. Until next time, good night and sweet dreams.